Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Trent. This is Rams Talk Super Bowl 56 edition. Welcome to the show. If you are new to Rams Talk, if you're seeing this for the first time, please subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at RealLARamsTalk. If you're a Bengals fan, it's okay. This is a safe space because Bengals fans, we feel you. We Rams fans are Bengals fans in a way. We feel your pain. But anyways, very pumped to bring you my first Super Bowl preview video. On Saturday, I will set up a live stream and I will put that out there and schedule it. So make sure you guys have that queued up on Saturday. But I think, I think all of us, this 2 weeks is just too much. From the championship games to the Super Bowl, I kind of want this game to happen already. I just can't take any more of the talking heads. So that's why you got me. Let's break this down. Let's talk about this. And, I was actually surprised to find out that the Bengals own the all-time record between them and the Rams, 8-6. So let's just make this 8-7, right? Although I think the Super Bowl should count for 2 or 3 points or 3 wins. So this should put us ahead of the Bengals if we win. But anyways, some news and notes getting into this game. Taylor Rapp, Darrell Henderson, Ernest Jones, all should play. All should be ready to rock. Which is great news, especially Ernest Jones for me. But just having that depth of Taylor Rapp and Darrell Henderson, should we need it. Sebastian Joseph Day, who knows? Not really sure what his status is. Higbee and Noteboom haven't practiced yet, and this is Thursday. I'm filming this on a Thursday before the injury reports have been filed, so I'm not quite sure what their participation is. However, I don't really think they'll practice at all this entire week, just because of the nature of their injuries. And that's a huge blow not having either one of them healthy. But on the other side, Cincinnati has CJ Uzomah. He's also dealing with an MCL sprain like Tyler Higbee. So, both of those guys could either miss the game or be very, very, have a minimal impact if they play, almost like window dressing, right? Unless they get something crazy shot into their knee and ready to go. I mean, I can't imagine them not trying to do it no matter what, because it is the Super Bowl. You don't know what kind of opportunities you have left in there. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the injury report trends, but just good news. Rapp, Hendo, and Ernest Jones. I think Ernest Jones, that's huge because he's our best coverage linebacker, probably outside of Traven Howard a little bit. So that's good. I mean, relatively healthy heading into the final game of the year. Now, one thing I was just thinking about, and everyone might already know this, but I was listening to a podcast where Calvin Johnson was being interviewed, and when Calvin Johnson was on the lines with Matthew Stafford, Sean Jefferson, Van Jefferson's dad, was a coach on that staff, and it dawned on me that Matthew Stafford was throwing passes to like little kid Van Jefferson back in the day. So like their connection goes way back. Like I'm sure this was all covered when Matthew Stafford came to the Rams, but like just kind of blew my mind that Van Jefferson and Matthew Stafford, like he was catching passes from Stafford when he was, I don't know, like 15 or 12 or whatever, however old he would have been back then. So anyways, turning back to this game, I have no hate for the Bengals. I have no hate for that. Like, honestly, it's a really good story. Like, what they've accomplished this year, like no one thought they would do this. This reminds me of the 99 Rams, the greatest show on turf, in a way. Like, that season came out of nowhere, and that season came on the heels of so many losing seasons. In the 90s, the Rams were the second worst team in football behind the Bengals. So like Bengals fans, I feel you. And it wasn't, so there was like this 5-year window of greatest show on turf, like where the Rams were good again, like really good. And then they went back into the tank. And they were terrible for another 10, 11 years, like really, really bad, until Sean McVay came along. Right, so the Rams have had 5 years of like amazing success, and then like a desert of losing, and then 5 years of amazing success, and before that a desert. I mean, I get you. We are one of the same. One of my old roommates is from Cincinnati, and Kelly Tolke. This one's for you. And just one other thing I got to say about Cincinnati is, and I mean, you'll probably take this personally, but Skyline chili is not chili. it's just like glorified bolognese. Like, when you eat chili on spaghetti, if that's like the dish, that's just bolo, right? So I'm sorry, don't really understand Skyline chili. If I want chili, I want my chili to be hearty, or I want my spaghetti to be like spaghetti. So I'm just throwing that out there. But Bengals fans, don't worry about it. We're friends here. Now, the Rams are favored by 3.5 points. This line kind of fluctuates all the time, but I really don't pay any attention to that because going into the Super Bowl against the Patriots, the Rams were 14-point favorites. And, we all know how that turned out. So, any given Sunday, while I ultimately think the Rams will win this game, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals did. They're a good team. And so, I think they're just kind of, no one saw this coming. Anyways, one thing I also want to address is this narrative that the Rams have had, since they got Von Miller or since they got Matthew Stafford, this going all in. I think that's just so tired and media is so lazy. But, if you talk about going all in, the last 2 seasons, if you're talking about free agent signings, the Bengals have 32 of them for $271 million. That's 4th in all of the NFL in the last 2 years in spending on free agents. The Rams in that same period have 10 free agents, and it's only cost them $36 million, and they are dead last in terms of free agent spending. So the Rams don't go out there and just buy players, right? They trade. So their capital is trading draft picks, and while everyone else spends money. So it's 2 means to an end or an objective, and the Rams go with draft capital and the Bengals go with spending money. But the Bengals free agent signings are not these huge $20 million things. They're kind of like between $5 and $12 million, but a lot of them. So just a very interesting team build for the Bengals, but just also another lazy narrative from the media, which just can we move past? Can we get any fresh, on the mainstream media for sports? As a Rams fan, I think about a lot, what did Sean McVay learn from Super Bowl 53 against the Patriots? I feel in that game what drove me so crazy was that there were 0 adjustments made. So they basically had their 11 personnel, and they were just running that with their wide zones, and they could not get away from it. He could not make an in-game adjustment no matter what the Patriots were doing to him. So I feel since then, he brought in Brandon Staley. He brought in a bunch of coaches to basically show him, install and teach him the things that have stymied his offense in the past so he can learn it and evolve through these things. When I remember last year when they lost to the Dolphins, there were all those cover 0 blitzes going on. The next practice, I think it was a bye week, so the next 2 weeks they were practicing nothing but cover 0 blitzes to Jared Goff. And so what did he learn from that Super Bowl? And what has he learned since? And I feel like there have been times this year earlier on where he hasn't been too flexible with the in-game adjustments. However, I think we've seen that like the game against the Niners in the NFC Championship game was the Rams defense was a complete kind of 180 from the type of defense they've always been. And so it showed me that, yes, they can adjust. They can adjust from game to game. Even week 18 against the Niners adjusted at halftime, came out, did all those pitch and catch runs, and the Rams couldn't adjust to that. So it's all about what is your game plan and what's your plan B and your plan C and your plan D without getting too complicated. Just like being prepared. If they're dropping 8 in the coverage, what are we going to do? If they're doing this, how can we react to that? So basically, this game is actually very fascinating in terms of playing chess between the defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, and Sean McVay, and vice versa on the other side. So what did Sean McVay learn from that previous Super Bowl? Not just the experience of being at a Super Bowl, but just the game planning and being flexible. And can he stay patient? Can he run the ball? Can he, work with time of possession? Can he make the in-game adjustments? Because I feel personally that the blueprint to this game for the Rams should be how they approached the Cardinals playoff game, where Matthew Stafford only had 200 yards passing and the Rams had 140 rushing yards. They won 34-11. Granted, there was a pick six, the the David Long interception on Kyler Murray when he just flailed it out of there. But the balance in that game, the time of possession, I mean, the Rams just owned that game from start to finish. And, I'm hopeful that, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay realize, like, hey, Matthew Stafford, you don't have to be the 300 to 400 yard guy with 2 or 3 touchdowns and the hero. I think keeping it simple, like establishing the run, bringing, defenders up in the box, getting the play action going. You take the pressure off of Matthew Stafford instead of having him have to, pass all the time. He can pick and choose his moments when the time is right. And I think that if anything, that's what they have to do. Now, granted, the Bengals are going to try and stop that, and I'm going to get to this later on. So anyways, that's kind of what I feel right off the bat. The blueprint of this game is Cardinals game from the playoffs. And I think that they just need to run the ball. They need to Cam and Sony. Hendo will be in the game. I assume if they put him in, then maybe he's going to be, a pass catcher. But I don't think they're really going to, like a 3-headed monster in one game is going to be, I don't think that's really going to happen so much in terms of running the ball. Let's move to Cooper Kupp, right? So Cooper Kupp is, I mean, we talk about him, but he's not a sexy player like Jamar Chase is a sexy player. And it just gets lost. Like, people have to keep bringing it up, and everyone goes like, oh yeah, okay, but it just never hits because he doesn't, he's not flashy, he's not out there, but he has more yards in a regular season and a postseason combined than any player ever in the history of football. Let that sink in. Yes, Jamar Chase is awesome. He's a number 1 receiver. He is a number 1 receiver, not the number 1 receiver, but he's a number 1 receiver. And he's really good. But, I mean, he's not that. And he had Joe Burrow throwing to him, but he didn't do that, right? Cooper Kupp needs 160 yards to have the most postseason yards ever. Larry Fitzgerald holds that. I mean, what if Cooper Kupp gets over 160 yards? It's possible. I mean, he's been shredding up the postseason already, right? What did he have last game? So, I mean, it's just, this is what we're seeing as unprecedented in NFL history. We are witnessing the greatest single season of a wide receiver ever. Even when Calvin Johnson broke the record, he didn't go into the playoffs. He didn't take that going. I mean, every big play in the playoffs, or most of the big plays for the Rams, have been Cooper Kupp against Tampa Bay, against San Francisco. Like, he's just unstoppable. He has 20 catches for 365 yards and 2 touchdowns in his last 2 games. He has 182.5 yards per game in his last 2 games against the Niners and the Bucs. Okay? Good teams. And has he ever really been stopped? Has a team figured him out? A lot of the things I hear about Cooper Kupp is, the teams always put their worst defender on him. I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you put your worst defender on the best receiver? So that's just BS. But he can't be stopped. He's such a smart guy. So even if they try to take him out of the game, the defensive assets that they will allocate to do that, then you have OBJ and Van Jefferson and Cam and all these other guys and Ben Skowronek, right? Okay. So let's put a little respect on his name, especially if he balls out in the Super Bowl. You got to put respect on Cooper Kupp's name. And I just, like, that gives me confidence because I feel like whenever the games have been on the line, Cooper Kupp has stepped up. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp have stepped up. And OBJ and Van will need to step up in this game. And I feel like OBJ and Stafford, this connection has just been like heating up and heating up and heating up. And every week it's just getting more and more and more. And, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting matchup. And what I'm most fascinated about in this game in terms of matchups is the Bengals defense against the Rams offense. Because I don't know what the Bengals defense is going to bring. They are so very flexible and they can mix and match. And their secondary play has just been great. So Von Bell and Jesse Bates, great safety combo. Von Bell from the Saints and Jesse Bates is homegrown guy, free agent after this season. Mike Hilton is a really good slot corner. He'll be going up against Kupp for the most part. Eli Apple and Chidobe Awuzie. So Eli Apple kind of like journeyman, but has been really solid this year. And Chidobe Awuzie from Cowboys, I mean, he's also, like, those two guys are not your high-end star cornerbacks, but they're extremely solid and valuable cornerbacks, right? You can get by with those guys 100%. And so it's going to be those two guys against OBJ and Van, and those are going to be interesting matchups to watch, because these aren't just scrubs, as TLC would say. And like I said, the Rams offense versus the Bengals defense is the most interesting matchup. Both can be so multiple and will adjust throughout the game. What's the game plan at the start, and how will it evolve? So, as you know, last week, defensive coordinator for the Bengals, Lou Anarumo, he schemed like crazy in the second half against Kansas City, dropping 8 in the coverage, and that just flummoxed Patrick Mahomes big time. He had nothing. He did not know what to do with 8 in coverage, and Reed didn't run the ball. And that was the thing. The Bengals allowed 5.8 yards per carry against Kansas City. So if any point in time when they start pumping this dropping 8 in coverage, if that happens, then I would hope that Sean McVay would be like, all right, we'll just pound the ball. If the Rams are getting 6 yards per carry, stay with it. Keep it going. Force them to bring those guys back up to the line. And then, it's easy stuff. It's easy stuff to comprehend, right? But just how is this actually going to play out? What is this going to look like when the game starts? By the way, the Rams are the away team, so they get to call heads or tails. So I would assume if they get that call right, they'll defer. So the Bengals will have the ball first. But when the Rams are on offense, I'm super curious to see that, because when it comes to the defense, the Bengals defense the Rams defense, I'm a little more certain in what to expect. But back to the Rams offense now. One thing about the Rams offense, that they have a clear market advantage over the Cincinnati Bengals counterparts, is offensive lines. The Rams have the number 1 offensive line in terms of pass rush win rates. And basically that means sustaining your block for 2.5 seconds or less. So basically you're holding up for 2.5 seconds, and they're number 1 in that. And Whitworth has he's the best tackle in pass blocking, according to Pro Football Focus. But the Rams line has allowed the 5th lowest pressure rate. So, the Bengals defensive line is a very good line, but it's not better than San Francisco's line. It's not better than Tampa Bay's line. Okay, and so I expect the Rams to actually hold up pretty well against that pass rush, and so we'll see how they do in run blocking. That's going to be the biggest key. Now, the Bengals defense overall, 17th in points per game allowed, average. Third down defense, 22nd, and red zone defense, 19th. So nothing terrible, nothing great, just kind of middle of the road there. So, and also let me say this about the Bengals, and, not trying to knock you, but it's a fact. The Bengals had to play the last place schedule this year. It was one of the easiest schedules they had. They lost to the Jets, right? Well, the Rams lost to the Jets last year, but, the Rams are battle tested. The Rams had one of the tougher records this year, tougher schedules this year. They ended up winning more games. And so I just feel like they're a little more battle tested than the Bengals, right? The Bengals are they had a nice year. They're getting hot at the right time. They're making really good decisions. They have a really good quarterback, a lot of good skill players. And what I think is also pretty interesting about this game are the wide receiver core for both sides of the ball are pretty identical, actually. So Cooper Kupp, while he's having a better year than Jamar Chase isn't far behind, right? So you could put them kind of both as equals. I think Jamar Chase has more natural ability. He's faster, but I think Cooper Kupp, especially because he's a veteran, has a little more savvy than Jamar Chase. But OBJ and Woods and Robert Woods, if you combine their stats, they're pretty much identical to T. Higgins, right? So like our number 2 guy is Higgins, same as Higgins. Jefferson versus Boyd, both kind of identical years in terms of output. However, Boyd has been a wide receiver 1 before, so it's kind of like your old school wide receiver 1 is now your wide receiver 3. And I don't feel Van Jefferson really is he's definitely not a wide receiver 1. Is he even really a wide receiver 2? Probably not at this point. So, but I think Boyd would have the advantage there. And then Higbee versus Uzoma. I think Higbee is... they both have had identical years pretty much. I'd go Higbee personally. Uzoma is their like flavor guy. He's got the dances and he's got the sass. He's firing everything up. But then we have Kendall Blanton. And Kendall Blanton, I think, could be a difference maker in this game if he plays. And I'll get to that matchup later on. But if we're flipping to the other side of the ball, with the Rams on defense and Burrow on offense, and I started writing down some of these stats, and it's like the key to Burrow is pressuring him. He has a 40% passer rating under pressure. I'm like, the key to getting to every quarterback is pressure. Like, when is there ever been a quarterback who's like, oh yeah, like I have 100% passer rating when I'm pressured all the time? Like, no one likes that. So I was like, of course, okay. I'm sure Stafford has a terrible passer rating when he's pressured. Like it's every quarterback probably does. But the thing about Burrow that I think will be a big deal in this game is his pocket presence and his escapability. He's kind of a magician. He was that against Kansas City, scrambled 5 times for 25 yards. And so it's not just getting pressure on him, but it's containing him. I think this is kind of like Kyler Murray. So it was filling. Sometimes we brought in an extra rusher to fill those lanes, but I'm really hoping that the Rams can get pressure with 4. So we'll see. They've usually been bringing pressure with 5. And Burrow likes to go vertical, but he switched up against Kansas City and he was taking the short stuff. And I think the key to this game really for Cincinnati's offense is for him to get the ball out quickly. Look at what San Francisco did with Debo. Look at what other teams do with, like they have Samaje Perine and Mixon. Chase even does wide receiver screen. So I think the screen game, the short game, that's going to be the key for Cincinnati, especially early, to mitigate the Rams' pass rush, because Joe Burrow is going to have 99 problems, and Aaron Donald is every single one of those. Aaron Donald's going to feast. I know we're all talking about this, but this is, to me, the biggest matchup and the mismatch in the game. The Rams defensive line versus the Bengals offensive line. And I just thought it was funny when they kept saying, the Titans sacked him 9 times and it didn't matter. And I'm like, okay, if that is your pitch to me, like, hey, our quarterback can get sacked 9 times and we can still win. Well, first of all, Ryan Tannehill is why you won that game also, because come on, the Titans are not the Rams. But I don't think that's something to boast, because you put Joe Burrow and the Bengals in continuous second, third, and long situations because of sacks. That's not going to work out well for you. The Rams defense is for real, and Von Miller. Everyone's talking about Von Miller, but I think the thing is, and I heard this on the 11 Personnel podcast, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but this really resonated with me, is that it's not just the stats, it's not just what you see on the field, what Von Miller's bringing every play, right? And making an impact physically in the game. It's what playoff Von brought to the Rams team, in between games and practices and everything. And he's been there before. People listen to him. Aaron Donald would listen to Von Miller. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like Aaron Donald's like, okay, here's the dude. Like I listen to this dude. I respect this dude. And Von sees the way that guys gravitate and sort of just wholly attune to whatever AD is doing. They see him, but they didn't really hear Aaron Donald in the past. And Von told AD, the guys are ready to play for you. They're ready to lay their necks on the line. All you have to do is ask them to do it. Cut to against the 49ers when Aaron Donald is given that galvanizing speech on the sideline. And then the next 2 defensive stops were just like out of this world. You saw Ashawn Robinson going on another place. And I think it's just one of these things that's kind of like he was he's kind of been like the king that was promised and just never really wanted to like own it. But everyone's like, dude, just tell us to fight for you. We'll do it. And that's what he did. And that's what they did. And I just feel like they get this moment. The Rams defense gets this moment. And Von Miller and Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Greg Gaines, and A'Shaun Robinson, those dudes up front, they get this moment. And I wouldn't be surprised. I've been trying to call and predict an Odell Beckham Jr. jet sweep for like the last 4 games, and they just don't do it. But one thing I would like to speak into existence is a Von Miller strip sack. I mean, I feel like this is a total Von Miller strip sack game, right? So, pressures are not just hurried throws. They're not just sacks, but they're potentially turnovers, right? And my keys to every Rams win all the time is always win the turnover battle and convert on third downs. Throw in some time of possession, and you got this, girl. Speaking of the Bengals offensive line, it's not good. Here's some PFF grades. I think everyone knows this, but the best side, think of it like this. From left to right, it's better and it gets worse. So if you're watching this like this. So left tackle Jonah Williams, he's ranked 25th out of 83 tackles in the NFL. Okay, not bad, but he's their best. Their left guard, Quinton Spain, is ranked 25th out of 82 guards. So right there, okay, solid players, right? Their center, Trey Hopkins, 35 out of 39 centers. So now, getting a little shaky here. Then right guard, they have 2 guys that they split time. One is Jackson Carman, and there's Akeem Adeniji. And one is 67th out of 82, another is 81 out of 82. And then the right tackle is Isaiah Prince, 77 out of 83. So once you hit the center and you go center, right guard, right tackle, ooh, baby. I mean, that is and it's going to be in Burrow's face, because he's getting the ball and he's looking, and it's going to be coming right at him. So, do you load up Vaughn and AD on that side and just say, all right, give Vaughn a one-on-one with Prince and let Adeniji or Carmen or Trey Hopkins take AD? And, in terms of double teams, I think AD could take those guys. So, that's just going to be, and so one of my matchups later is going to be the tight end for Cincinnati. I'll get to that in a second. But in terms of the defense for the Rams, who will the Bengals pick on? Will it be Troy Reeder? Will it be Darius Williams, Dave Long, Dante Dean, Robert Rochelle? That's going to be very compelling for me. But I think the difference between the secondaries and the as a whole in terms of covering receivers is that we have Jalen Ramsey and they don't. And Jalen Ramsey's I don't think he's going to stick to one guy unless let's say Jamar Chase just gets hot and he's catching lots of balls. They'll put him on Jamar Chase to calm that down. But I mean, they're going to move him all over the place, and he's a neutralizing player. And they have not in the playoffs. They have not gone up. The Bengals haven't gone up against a cornerback or even a secondary for that matter, like the Rams. So, the Titans secondary is not bad, but they don't have Jalen Ramsey, who's first in his position. So this could remind me, or kind of reminds me of the first game against Arizona when Kyler Murray picked on David Long, right? So, they had DeAndre Hopkins, they had AJ Green, they had Christian Kirk, they had all these receivers, and they just found, okay, who's David Long guarding? Okay, he's guarding AJ Green. Let's go after that. So I think also that's going to be a huge matchup. We'll get to that in a second. One thing, what do the Rams do? What did Raheem do? Do they just put Jalen Ramsey on T. Higgins and then double Jamar Chase and then, have someone else on Boyd? What do they do? So I'm almost at the matchups, but one last thing is going to be interesting is kickers. McPherson, can't say anything bad about Evan McPherson. Dude has been so money in clutch situations. Matt Gay's missed a couple field goals in the playoffs, but overall, I feel good about Matt Gay. So we have 2 strong kickers going up against each other. I'd say Evan McPherson is better at this point, but it's not a landslide or anything like that. Now, players and matchups to watch. All right, so like I just said, the right side of the Bengals, line versus AD, Von Miller, and Leonard Floyd. I mean, seriously, the Super Bowl always has random guys stepping up and doing really well. Maybe it's Greg Gaines has a really good game. Maybe it's Ashawn. I think it's going to be hard for the Bengals to get consistent yards on the ground. I think it's just, I don't think that they've gone up against a defense like the Rams. Here's a good matchup for you. Drew Sample and Kendall Blanton. I mean, they're not going up against each other, but they're both kind of like the backup tight ends. Drew Sample's kind of like their Johnny Munt blocking guy. If Zuma can't go, or if he can't go, but he can't really hold up a blocking every play, and the right side of their line is just getting decimated by the Rams, Sample could be in there as a extra blocker a lot. So it'll be interesting to see, based on the Rams pass rush and how much pressure they're bringing on Joe Burrow, how much Drew Sample we will see, especially based on CJ's leg and his knee. So, and Kendall Blanton on the other side, if Higbee can't go, touchdown against the Bucks, and then a great big game, 5 catches, 57 yards against the 49ers. So he's a good blocker too. But what will we have depth-wise? Bryson Hopkins? If Higbee can't go, Bryson Hopkins? Or do you just have Higbee in there on the roster, game day roster, as an emergency? So that'll be really interesting to see. What I also just mentioned, like, how will our non-Jalen Ramsey cornerbacks match up against the Bengals receivers, right? So what is Raheem Morris going to do, especially if Robert Rochelle is healthy for this game? Between Dante Dion has been playing really well. So I think, but he's not tall. So I think T. Higgins would have such an advantage over Dion. So I think Dion will probably go on Boyd. And then you have David Long and Darius Williams, right? And Darius Williams, to me, Darius Williams is the key to our defense in this game. I think I'm not worried about the defensive line. I'm not worried about the linebackers. Ernest Jones is back. And if he's, close to 100%, he's great in coverage, and it minimizes the Troy Reader effect, right? You have Traven Howard out there too, also in coverage. But Darius Williams, if he can pick up his 2020 form, then we're good. Seriously, we're good. If he's 2020 Darius Williams, we're good. Cam Akers and Sony Michel. This could be a Cam Akers, Sony Michel show, right? The Rams rush for over 100 yards. They win this game, I feel, because that means they took a lot of pressure off of Matthew Stafford and they were getting a lot of easy chunk yards. Now, obviously, Mike Hilton versus Cooper Kupp. I feel like Cooper Kupp will win this matchup, but it's how much of it will actually be a matchup, how much of it will be zone and doubles and just, So that's going to be interesting. How do they play Cooper Kupp, and how does Mike Hilton match up against Cooper Kupp? Because as nice as Mike Hilton is, it's Cooper Kupp, okay? Whitworth versus Hendrickson. So Trey Henderson. By the way, the Bengals have 3 Treys, at least that I know of. Trey Hopkins, Trey Henderson, and there's another Trey that they have on their team. But like I said, Witt's best. He has the best pass block rate, and Trey Hendrickson is comparable to Nick Bosa this year. Both really solid, top 10 edge rushers in the NFL. But Whitworth did well against Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa wasn't so much of a factor, right, last week. So, but Hendrickson is not good against the run. So it'll be interesting to see how the Rams, when they run the ball, do they run it at Hendrickson's side? Now, if I'm also going to target someone, it would be Sam Hubbard in coverage. Sam Hubbard, when he drops in the coverage and he's a robber, he's good. And Sam Hubbard is a very, very sound player. But, he's kind of like the Troy Reader actually is really terrible in coverage. I looked it up on PFF and it's just it's abysmal. So Sam Hubbard is better. But if there's a player that you want to take a mismatch on, potentially Sam Hubbard in coverage. And then my last 2 matchups are Brandon Powell and special teams. Special teams are top 5. I would never have thought that. That's so crazy. But the game may or may not be lost or won on special teams. Field positions. What if he breaks off a couple 20-yard runs on a kickoff or a punt return, right? And the Rams get field position at the 50. Like that's just gold. And they've been doing it. I feel like they're finally gelling and they're getting it. So Brandon Powell and Joe DeCamillis, the special teams coordinator. I mean, that's the coverage teams. They're really dialed in right now. And this is it's going to be interesting to see how they can help position the Rams offense. And then conversely, Johnny Hekker punting, can they really pin the Bengals back? My biggest question though out of all of this is, what will McVay do? What will he do? What's the game plan going in? I think, what we want to see, what we think will work, but what is the game plan? How flexible is he? What are his contingencies? That's it. That's really what it comes down to. And I think because of the Rams defense, because of their running game that they now have, because Stafford in the fourth, because the Rams don't quit. Like they let some leads get away, but they come back. Stafford's great in the fourth quarter. Burrow's good too. Like I'm not taking anything away, but I just feel like the Rams are built for this. Like they've no offense, Bengals, but the Rams went from crap to playoffs to Super Bowl to not playoffs to playoffs to Super Bowl. So this is the Rams' time. Like the Rams have put in the work for this. Bengals, I mean, there's no guarantee you get back to the Super Bowl. Just ask Dan Marino. But Bengals, it's our time. It's not your time yet. Joe Burrow has another 15 years in this league, 13, 15 years in this league. This is not your time. This is our time. This is the Rams' time. And I just feel like there's a vibe of that. Like these are vets that are still like really playing good in their primes. And I think the Rams take it. Like I said, if the Bengals win, I would not be surprised. And I have nothing against the Bengals. But I'm just being real as a Rams fan. And, Bengals fans, like, just savor this. Like, right now, you be focused on the Senior Bowl, mock drafts. This is good stuff. This is good stuff for everyone. I'm really excited for the games. I'm excited for the modern throwbacks. I'm excited to do a live stream this Saturday. So, thank you, everyone, for watching. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Find me on Twitter at RealLARamsTalk. And let me know what you think about the keys of this game. And Bengals fans, be cool. You Midwesterners are always pretty cool. And but anyways, Rams fans, this is for you. I'm so stoked. And three more sleeps, as my kids say. 3 more sleeps until the Super Bowl. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great day. And as always, go Rams. Boom. Good luck throw right there.